thank you very much for the very interesting presentations. I've just got a few questions, but to David. I wasn't quite sure I understood if I understood it properly, but you use a cutoff of 45. Did I say it correctly? So before and after 45. I was just wondering why you do that. Why just make it more flexible? Because I guess the reason why after 45 you may not be observing something, because usually after 60 something you'll have this fall again in well-being. So the U-shape usually just goes up to around 60 or 70 or somewhere around there, and then it drops again. So isn't that sort of having an effect on that part, the right of 45, which could maybe be destroying your argument that it's not U-shaped? Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I think it's working, yes, okay. 45 was just one cutoff point. I did explore a variety of them, going up to 65. After 65, I didn't see a decline. I didn't really get anything all that different across the different cutoff points chosen. I imagine that has to do with the fact that it's such a wide range of countries. There's no way around the fact that the results here might be different because it's not just Europe, it's not just the Western countries. I'm not sure if I'm prepared to explain why it wouldn't be different with this wider range of countries, but I didn't see a decline after 65 using that cutoff.
Can we go there, and then there, and then there?
Thank you for all the speakers, very great talks. So I have a comment and maybe also a question for all of you. So demography is concerned about age period and cohort. So there is age effect, period effect, cohort effect. But in your studies, you didn't consider the effect of period or cohort. There are some studies done in the US using traditional age period analysis of happiness over the life course and also the period effect. And it shows that opposite trend. So the happiness increases with age. So my question is, do you think it's a country-specific context, or is it because of the method, the measurement, or the data?
Who wants to take this one?
I think it's method. My suspicion is it's method. APC, once you write it down, APC it's not identified. If you know someone's age and the year in which they were interviewed, you know the year in which they were born, and that's just true. Right? We get around it by either using specifying functional forms, like the quadratic, like the cubic. We get around it by not having year categories, but by having 5-year categories. In which case, you can identify someone who's getting a year older, but they're staying within a 5-year birth cohort. Or you can do some really crazy stuff I've done in the past and I regret now, which is where you look at people who are not interviewed exactly 1 year difference, and therefore they're the same age in 2 different waves, and that is just obvious nonsense. I wish I hadn't done that. But you can only get around it by making hypotheses. I think it's just, you're talking about the Ken Land and Yang paper, is that the one?
Yeah, ASR.
I think you just have to make hypotheses for that, and my suspicion is that they're getting different results because they're making hypotheses, and all of these hypotheses are bad. And it may well be true that some are less bad than others, but that's the way science goes forward. It's difficult, nobody knows how to do it.
My question or my remark concerns essentially the U-shaped pattern of this, what Hippolyte said. And we are all scientists, and give the simple example that well-being depends only on the scientific publications you have over your life cycle, and for nothing else. Then the usual pattern is a steep increase, then you have a maximum and then a gradual decline of that, which has been considered in the number of publications. But you consider the U-shaped, and I recently reviewed a paper on the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, where they had also these U-shaped publications. And I asked Hippolyte whether he can construct a model, let's say, with 2 state variables. One is the status, let's say, the human capital which you have, where the publications dependent, and the other one is the aspiration. And if you compare your aspiration, which was authorized in the last lecture, with the actual level of the stock of knowledge, and you have, let's say, if the aspirations exceed the actual stock, or smaller than that, you have a utility or a disutility in that case, and you have an optimizing agent in that case, you can have this midlife crisis, or you can probably model this part, this decrease in the middle of the life cycle. And there is a paper published by a Swiss economist, Schwant is the name, 2016, where he had this midlife crisis. And my question simply is whether you can find a model, this, let's say, of a life cycle model where you have this optimal pattern as this midlife crisis.
Okay, thank you, Mr. So concerning the publication, not even sure that I'm going to publish this one, with this presentation. Maybe that since I'm under this field, might be that now the number of publications that I have is going to be. But thank you for your suggestion about the model. And as a theoretician, I really think that those life cycle pattern as a function of as a function of, let's say, well-being, should be rationalized by a model. As you suggested, what is very complicated is that to have something which is non-monotonic. As soon as you are forward-looking and that you start to optimize and to get some utility, that's different from forward variable, you would expect, have a dynamic of this well-being being monotonous. Okay? So I take your suggestion. And I really think that it's an important and open field for this.
Thank you. My name is Thijs van der Broek. I'm at Erasmus University in Rotterdam. First, I would like to say thanks to all the presenters. This was a session I really enjoyed. I have a question for David. You make quite a strong case for not controlling for social demographic background characteristics when you look into the effect of age. And I largely agree with your plea, but I was wondering about education, because especially in later life, of course, you don't see that given excess mortality of lower educated people. If you look at very old people, they are actually quite likely to be, or relatively likely to be, higher educated if you disregard cohort effects due to that selective mortality. So wouldn't that be a reason to actually take educational attainment into account?
Okay. So, I mean, the question of differential mortality is an issue, and I'll come to that in a moment, but I would worry about education as a control for the people that are actually in your sample, because it will be an intervening variable. Okay? People who are older now had less opportunity for education when they were younger. So in that sense, controlling for it washes out that impact that might be, it's not so much associated with aging per se, but it is associated with age, especially with cohort. Insofar as you've got excess mortality among people who are older and also less educated, then we can think through what that would mean in connection with the results that I'm giving. It's a question of reverse causation as well. If lower educated people who are also less happy are not present in your sample because they've died, right, at a greater rate, then what that suggests to me is that the results that I've presented in regard to aging among older people, that they would overstate the extent of life satisfaction increasing, right? Not much, but already. So it's overstating it. So the point that you've given, I think it goes even further in undermining the notion that life satisfaction rises among people that are older.
Right, but it's still biased.
It's biased, but when we understand the nature of the bias, it leads us to, we can't say how much it's biased, right? We don't know if it's a lot or a little bit, but whatever it is, it's biasing those results upwards. So the true effect, it's even more flat.
Yes.
Yeah, my question goes into a similar direction, because it seems to me that it's very plausible that there is survivorship biases in all these U-shaped Because if everybody that's unhappy dies, then we get these results. And in the last presentation where we have weighted fixed effects results, except for this small retirement bump, it was just downhill from Middle Ages. So that might be, and it was not really discussed so much. Do you think about this?
Yeah, that was very small point on this. I didn't have time to specify it, but both samples. In a sense, I think this is this bias a bit the sample that I'm using, but to compare the cross-sectional and fixed effect models, I did it with the same sample of individuals who are very long in the panel, so which might present other problems. But in terms of the comparison of the cross-sectional and the fixed effect estimates, in there I only had people which I observed for a very long time, like more than 10 years in a sense. So again, this creates other problems, but I was trying to get there, to get to the fact that to have the fixed effect observed clearly in a life course perspective, you need to get people observed for a long time.
So I just wanted to add something. I just wanted to add something regarding our paper. We do take this seriously. There's selective mortality. The problem is in Europe, not enough people die. And we need to do something about this. If you go up to age 80, there's just not enough people missing. We calibrated it with giving everyone a life satisfaction of 0, according to standard mortality tables. It just doesn't make much difference because most people are alive most of the time we're looking at. So it didn't look as though it could be. I mean, it's true. It's obviously true. It just didn't look so.
Małgorzata Mikucka, University of Louvain-la-Neuve. I enjoyed all the presentations, thank you very much, but my question goes to Andrew. You interpret your results as causal, and I was a bit surprised knowing that, like, how big is the self-selection to parenthood. We know that happier people are more likely to have kids. We know that poorer people are more likely to have kids. How do you deal with that?
Well, I've got two answers to that. The easy one is we don't. We don't because we don't have a great instrument for it. The second is that I know that this is biased, but it's biased the right way around. So we're producing actually in absolute terms an underestimate. And what I mean by that is if happier people have kids, then finding that in a correlational sense, children and subjective well-being are negatively correlated, even that is an upwardly biased estimate. So the real estimate must be even worse. And that's, in a sense, our conundrum is to do with sign. It's not to do with the size. And I think even if we correct in the way you're saying, we would still have a sign issue. That we don't, I mean, across 35 Eurobarometer countries and 35 Eurobarometer ways, 25 countries, we just don't have instruments. No one does. Though it's an absolutely very good point.
I think there was another question over there. I think you've got to project the voice. He's indisposed.
Thank you very much. So I have one short comment on the Hippolyte's paper, which I enjoyed a lot, and I think perhaps in your case you talk a lot about partnership status, but maybe one really needs to disaggregate this and take transitions a little bit more seriously. So obviously you have happy and unhappy marriages, you have happy single status, unhappy single status, and then particularly it gets compounded a bit more when you start to look at fixed effect models where you can have like people who get married, that's arguably happy, people who get divorced, that's arguably happy maybe for one, unhappy for the other possibly. And then you have widowhood, and so I think it would be nice to really break this down a little more to really understand what's going on. And then I have a very short comment, on David. So I'm not sure it's that black and white. So I think in a way both of these approaches are very interesting. And so one argument I think that could be made sort of against you is if you just regress on age, and for example now I institute a new retirement program and I give all the older people more money and I do the same regression just on age, I get a different effect of age. And in reality, I'm just picking up institutional change, it's social protection for certain age groups. And I'm not sure that I would also define that as a causal effect of age. We could say it is in a specific context, but it's maybe rather an effect of a social protection program.
So very short. So indeed, thank you. It's exactly what we do, in order to compare the cross-section on that end of the panel. Indeed, we are looking at those transitions, and to see whether, we select in and out, some kind of individuals. Nobody is, is that you will be partner, for the whole life cycle. Because some are, of course, but it makes no sense to compare those who are always partner with those who are never partner. So indeed, there's some work to do on those transitions. Even though it's not so easy to do, but we're working on that.
So I'm not sure I entirely understand, but if the point is about something about social protection, the way it might change, especially in regard to payments made to older people, I mean, the variable, the inclusion of the term per period should cover that. I can't see that there's a need for something more directly in there. I mean, in essence, the point I'm trying to make is that, especially in regard to older people, I mean, when people get older, for some people, bad things start to happen. You can lose your spouse, you lose some of your friends, maybe your income goes down, maybe that's counteracted by social protection, but whatever it is, I mean, these things are consequences of age, right, for people that are older. And if you control for them, then you obscure the impacts that age has that runs through those variables. They're not necessary for mitigation of bias by some notion of omitted confounders, not just omitted variables, but omitted confounders. And in fact, if you put the controls in, you're going to hide the indirect effects that those paths represent.
Can we have a final question? Maybe somebody who hasn't had a go? Anybody for a last burning question? Last anything? Well, Simon, then take it away. Thank you very much, everybody.